we're going to make sure that the engine matches. We're going to make sure that all of these components match up with this build date so that you guys know at the end of the video, if you're interested in purchasing the car, that everything on this car is date coded correct. This must be it. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Parker, my pleasure, sir.
It's good to meet you.
It's my pleasure to meet you also.
I see that you've got all the goodies laid out here for us.
Yes, I do.
Guys, this is Jack. Jack is the owner of a 1969 Camaro RS Z28 that he is offering for sale. And what we're going to do is basically go over all of the parts and pieces so that you guys know exactly how to date code one of these cars at home. Jack's going to kind of pick up on some of the parts that I don't know a whole lot about. But first, let's go take a look at the car. Where's the car at?
The car's right over here.
Okay.
It's been in storage.
Oh, wow, okay. I knew it was just the shell, but I wasn't sure. You said you had it acid dipped at one time. I wasn't sure if it was bare metal or if it was in primer or what it was.
This isn't a primer, a protective primer to keep it from the raw metal so it doesn't flash rust.
Okay. And I'm seeing here, what are the circle marks?
Those circle marks that you see right here is the date codes for all of the sheet metal that was on the car when it was being assembled. Those are the dates.
Now, for the people at home watching this video that are kind of new to 69 Z28s, there's really no way to tell whether this car was a Z28 from the bare shell just like this. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Now, what we can tell about this car is that it was a RS car, so it did have the hideaway headlights because this is for the vacuum lines. And what I mean by that is, Jack sent me some paperwork, so I know this car was blue, but of course it would have had the hideaway headlights and it would have been the RS. Now, Jack has added the RS. This would not have been here from the factory, but this is the original grille that was in here. Is that correct?
That is correct, Parker.
And it is broken, you told me.
Yes.
And you do have another one to replace that?
I have an NOS one to replace this in.
So he has an NOS one, guys, and what that means is new old stock. So that's not like Jack, he didn't go on eBay and order a new grill. He bought an original
grill from Chevrolet Motor Division.
And before 1988, 86, I think is around.
Yes, correct.
And so he has the real deal, real stuff for this car. We don't really have to go over anything inside this car, I don't think. What do you think, Jack?
No, I don't believe so.
But what we're going to do is kind of get it out here so they can kind of get a better look.
Yes.
It rolls easy?
Yes, it rolls easy.
That's good probably right there. What do you think?
That's good.
Another thing that I wanted to take a look at and show you guys for the 69 Z28 is they did come with dual exhaust. We've talked about this many times on other videos that we have, but right there, that is what the doubler plate would look like for the dual exhaust on a big block car which had dual exhaust, or Z28 which it was mandatory on. Now you could have got dual exhaust on any car, it was an option, but on the Z28 it was standard, so it's good to see that right there. Jack, what can you tell us that has been done to this body? I did noticing that the inner fender well right here has a little bit of issue with where the seam sealer was. If someone was to purchase this car from you, what needs to be done to the body, to this piece?
The inner wheel wells need to be replaced. Okay. In the rear. And I do have both the inner and the outer half for the wheel wells for both sides of this car.
Okay, so you do have those pieces, they do come with the car?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Is there any other parts on the car that need addressed or helped or anything like that?
Yes, the rocker panel on the passenger side. There is some rust on it, and it does need to be replaced.
See that down in here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very simple job. I do see there is a little issue right in here.
I have all the sheet metal for this.
Okay. I mean, as far as Camaros go on a everyday, if you look at them every day, that is simple.
Yes.
I mean, not very, very difficult. We do have a little pitting up in here, which is
I have a new metal dash pad for it.
Okay. And of course, it has its hidden VINs on it in the correct location. But what you've done is you've actually got a lot of parts here for us, and you have a lot of parts over there. And what I want to do for the audience is kind of break everything down in order for them. And I wanted to start with the cow tag. So do you have
I have the cow tag. It's right over here.
Cool.
Here's the cow tag right here, or the trim tag, as it's known.
Yep. So this is an original 69 Z28. Obviously, we can see it was an X33 D80 car. Now, before we get there, what I want to show you guys is that this car was a paint code 71. And what that means is that this car was Le Mans blue. It also has a 715 as the trim code, which means that the interior to this car was actually blue also. So it was a blue Le Mans blue car, blue seats, but it did have a black vinyl top on it. And that's what the B stands for in this area. And what the B means is it has a black vinyl top, and the stripes to this car were black. If it had a E for a white vinyl top, the car would have had white stripes on it. Was your car an original Endura front bumper car?
Yes, I ordered that. I ordered my car with the Endura front bumper on it.
Okay, it's actually something we also haven't mentioned yet. Jack is the original owner to this car. In other words, you actually bought this car from the dealership in 1969, and you told me it was with your dad, right?
My father and I, we went down to Don Allen Chevrolet in Pittsburgh, and we sat down and we ordered this car from Don Allen.
Now, what kind of provoked you to buy a 69 Camaro Z28 in 1969? What was the thought process behind that?
I was working in Greensburg, PA, and I had seen this burgundy Z28, and I thought that it had S28 on it.
Oh,
and
okay.
it was real loud, and I says, I'm going to buy one of them cars. And it was about maybe 6 months later, my father and I, we went down to Don Allen Chevrolet. We sat down, and the salesman explained the options that I wanted on the car, and that's how it ended up.
Now, how old were you?
I was 19 when I ordered
19.
this car.
And was this car an expensive car for you at 19, or how was the money like? Because sometimes I hear people, oh, that was an expense. They must have been rich back in the day. Like, how was that? Did you pay for the car, or how did that deal work?
No, I took it out on payments.
On payments,
and it was a 3-year loan with GMAC, and my payments were $92.93.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty cool. So back to the tag here. What's really important about this car for the rest of this video is the build date, because we're gonna go over a lot of build date information. And so we know that the car was built 05E, which the 5th month is May, and E would be the 5th week of May. So we know it was built the last week of May. We can also tell that by the VIN number as well. What that means is we're gonna make sure that the engine matches, we're gonna make sure that all of these components match up with this build date, so that you guys know at the end of the video, if you're interested in purchasing the car, that everything on this car is date coded correct. So the first thing that I want to do is start with the engine. I see it sitting over there. Do you mind if we take a look at that?
Let's go and take a look at it.
Awesome. I've had a chance to talk with you, Jack, and you told me that there is a little bit of story to this engine. So this is a 302 DZ block. This is basically just the short block. And you were saying that back in the day, you had it redecked. Is that correct?
I had the block decked, correct.
And what he means by that is he had the surface of this area right here redone so that it's brand new. So that basically it's like a brand new engine again. Now when they do that, they actually took the numbers off of the pad, which would be right here. On a regular 302 DZ block, the reason we know it's a DZ is because it would say DZ on the pad. Now this has tape over it, and there's nothing there, so we don't have anything to show you. But we can still tell that this is a 302 block, and we'll go over that right now. The first thing that we want to do is we want to take a look at the number of this block. In April, they switched over to the 010 blocks. So on our early Z28, there would be a different number here, but after April, the block would be 010. So that's a good sign that the base block is the correct for a 302. Now, if we also go over here to the crankshaft is different for a 327, a 350, or a 307. And they have different faces to these crankshafts. Now this crankshaft is specific to a Z28, and it almost looks like a Pac-Man with a face or a mouth out of the circle back here, where it bolts to the flywheel or pressure plate. What's also cool about this engine is that the VIN number for the car that would have been on the pad up here has been decked off. We don't know what VIN number is on the front. They marked them one other place, and that would have been right here on the side of the block by the fuel filter. Now it's very faint, it is in there, but you're gonna have to get some sort of paper and tracing equipment to kind of trace over that to get the actual VIN numbers that match the car. Now, we do know that your car was built the last week in May. What's cool about this block is if we look at the stamp right here, we can see that it says E. Now E alphabetically is the 5th letter, which would be May. It also says 13 right here, and then it says 9. So we know that they cast this block on May 13th, 1969. And if this car was built in the 5th week of May, at the end of May, this engine was built probably about 13 days before or whatever, or however many days before, so that would be correct for your car. If this engine did have the actual numbers on the plate up here, we know what those numbers are because Jack has owned this car since day one and he has these numbers. It would say VO519.
Correct.
And then a DZ after that. Now what that means is the V stands for Flint, Michigan, so we know it was built in the Michigan plant.
Correct.
05 would stand for May.
Correct.
And then 19 would be the date. See, they cast the block. Remember I said this block could be a 327, 307, 350. So they cast the block as a small block on the 13th, but it was turned into a 302 DZ on the 19th, and that's what the numbers are up here on the front.
Correct.
Awesome. So yeah, this would have been a 302 DZ motor for Jack's car. Now we do have heads for this, but you said, Jack, they're in a different location. Is that right?
They're at my house. They've just been refurbished.
Okay, so they do match their 186 Camelback
They are the
heads?
186 with May 8th and May 9th for date codes.
Cool. So they were also built in May.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Awesome, awesome. So now that we've confirmed the engine is a numbers matching block, there's one more thing on the cow tag that I wanted to show you guys, and that has to deal with the spoiler. We've taken a look at other 69 Z28s on this channel, but this is the first Z28 that we've taken a look at that has the D80 designation down here where it's actually mandatory. In April of 1969, up until April is where you could option spoilers on a Z28. After April is whenever they were mandatory. That's why this one says D80. So what I wanted to do is check your car and see if it has the correct spoiler pieces. Is that okay?
Yes.
What I wanted to show you guys is the rods here, and Jack's pretty knowledgeable about Camaros too, but you can see how the bottom bar is thicker than the top bar. And that's for the weight of the actual spoiler itself for whenever the door closes or the trunk closes. The second thing is, of course, the notch for the hole in the front clip. And take a look.
I got it, Porker.
You can see that he has the hole here for the front bracket for the front spoiler for the D80. It's just a good sign, you know, that everything's matching up so far. We've confirmed pretty much everything on the cow tag matches the components that Jack has kind of scattered around the car. Jack, do you have the transmission to this car?
I do. It's at my house in my basement.
Okay, is it numbers matching or original transmission or?
It is the original transmission.
Oh, cool, okay. I do see that you have the rear end here, and I kind of wanted to talk about that for a second. I kind of spotted that on the way in here. This is the, you sent me the paperwork for this car.
Correct.
And I saw that you ordered the posi unit for this.
Correct.
And so that would have a BU code, and we can see here that it has a BU code on it. And what's cool is it has a build date of 5, which would be May 19th. And then, of course, the unit or the shift would have been G1. And 19, that's whenever your block was...
My block was stamped 519. This differential was stamped 519 also. which is unusual for two items to have the same the same date on.
So basically the components of this car were pretty much built on the same day, or two of the major components so far that we've found.
Correct.
What I wanted to do is I had Jack kind of pull out some of his pieces. Even though the car is not painted, Jack has taken the time and spent the money and the effort, and he's basically had all of the little teeny pieces done perfectly correct for a concours level restoration. You just have so much neat stuff here, I don't know where to start, and I guess you have an original Baldwin Motion
key fob.
And you said you, where did you get that?
I ordered that from Baldwin Motion in 1973, along with some Baldwin Motion decals.
Oh, that's just too neat. So that's an original Motion keychain, and
with an original set of my keys to the car.
And of course, the square ones turn the car on, and the circle one goes to the trunk. What I'm going to do here is make some room, and this is something that I also wanted to show you guys. Is we have the original plates to the car. And so what plate would this have been, Jack?
That is a dealer plate
okay.
From 1969 that would have been applicable for any car in 1969.
And then you eventually switched over to this license plate.
I got a personalized plate as RSZ28.
Not gonna lie, I think I like this one better. I think that's pretty sweet. The reason that paperwork is so important with 69 Camaros is because a lot of people like to fake stuff. A lot of people like to build cars that aren't real, and we're gonna go over that paperwork right now. So if you wanna kind of walk us through this, Jack, you're more familiar with the paperwork than I am.
This is a copy of my original window sticker when I bought the car brand new in 1969.
And so you got soft ray tinted glass, you had the door edge guards, it had the black vinyl roof, center console, you ordered the posi traction, 373s, but you said you ended up getting 410s, was that right?
This car was ordered with 410s.
With 410s.
And
so is that a mistake on here, or?
No.
No.
The 410, the 4 Series carriers were on constraint at the time when I ordered my car.
Okay.
And I kept asking the dealer, when's my car coming? And he said that the 4 Series carriers were on constraint. So after a while, the salesman at Don Allen Chevrolet, he just told Chevrolet, send the car through with the 373s because that was the standard gear. And he says, the guy wants the car. So it was sent through.
Like went down the line with 373s in it?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was delivered to me with 373s.
Really?
Yes.
I seen on this one where you sent me this before, it does say 410.
See, and this car shows, this is my original order form.
This is the paper that you sat down with the guy in the store and ordered
at the dealership, and he asked me what options do I want on the car, and he wrote everything down that I wanted on the car. And this is what I took home at the end of the day.
Basically, everything that's in this section is the same thing that would be on that section.
Correct, Parker.
And how much did you pay for the car?
$42.67 was MSRP on the car.
And what was that comparable to like other cars back in the day? Did you feel like that hurt your pocket or no?
No.
Okay.
Although this one was pretty well optioned out because of it being a rally sport, because it had the Endura bumper.
Okay.
It had the rosewood steering wheel on it.
I see that here.
It's there.
But what are some of the other paperwork that you have? I guess this is just another copy of that page.
This is another copy of the of my order form that I had made. The white paper right here. This is the bank copy that the bank held for when I bought the car, and 7/3/72 is the date that I paid the car off.
Okay, so it took you like 3-4 years.
Yes.
Okay.
3 years. Now the white page is the bank copy. The green page is the owner's copy.
Okay. And then this is probably one of my favorite papers.
It's the pre-delivery sheet before they went through the car before they delivered it to the customer.
So I'm not sure if you guys can pick on and see this, but there are hand check marks in each little one of these boxes, and what that means is that was for the person that took this car off the 18-wheeler or however they got it to Don Allen Chevrolet, and before they gave the car to you, they went around with this and said, hey, the lights work, the engine works, it has oil in it, you know, taillights work, hazard warning lights work, directional signals work, and This is a piece of paper I've actually never seen before. So I do appreciate you showing us that on the channel here. And then you also have a Protecto plate for this car as well. You pretty much have every piece of paperwork that you need. Am I correct in saying that?
To authenticate the car, yes,
Okay.
Parker.
Cool, cool. Is there anything else in this booklet that we have to go over with right now, or anything that you'd like to show us? Or I know you have a lot of stuff kind of printed out here, and I do see the title in here that does. Your dad bought the car.
Correct.
Right?
Well,
so your name wasn't on the title originally, that's why this one says 75?
Correct.
Okay.
My father and I, even though I made the payments, I had no collateral when I was 19 to buy the car. My father ended up signing for it.
Okay.
And then about 73 or 74 is when I had it retitled into my name. But it's still an original owner car.
Yeah, still an original one-owner car. I totally get that. So now that we've kind of got the paperwork out of the way here, what I want to do is start going over some of these parts with you and kind of get people an idea at home if they're finding parts, you know, what to work with and what not to work with. So one of the coolest things that he has here is a rosewood steering wheel, and they actually made these in, if you look up the RPO codes, it does say a walnut grain, but this is a rosewood grain for 1969. You said this one was cracked. They're all cracked, and it was cracked right down here at the bottom.
Correct, Parker.
And it's also been resurfaced.
Correct.
Now, does that kind of affect the value a little bit? Because these are pretty expensive.
It depends.
It depends.
You know, it doesn't have the grain that an original NOS wheel would have on it.
The sheen is different, is what I'm trying to say.
Correct.
Yep, yep. And I could tell that, but I know a lot of regular people that don't look at Camaros all the time probably wouldn't notice. But this is a pretty, it's kind of like a bragging right on a Camaro when you have it done that you have a rosewood wheel. Is that kind
Correct.
of the way you would say that?
Yes.
Yeah, if you don't have a rosewood wheel, you're kind of left out of the group, in my opinion. I don't have one, but I wish I did. Is this blue because it was a blue car?
Yes, it was blue because the steering column was blue also, because and all the metal pieces were painted dark blue also.
Same as if you had a red interior.
That would have been red.
Yep. I guess let's start with the intake, because the intake's on the ground over here. And we can put it up here. I'll get it out of the box. Now, this is the original intake from your car.
Correct, Parker.
And they were aluminum. Has this been repainted, or is it just bare aluminum?
It's been refurbished. It's been refurbished.
The Z28 intakes are kind of like a high-rise intake. They're all aluminum, and this is the part number that they would have had on them. They had the 472 here at the end. Now, General Motors did remake this intake 2 times. I'm not good enough to tell you what holes and stuff they filled or drilled or whatever between the differences between the intakes, but I do know that this one is an original one by the cast date on the back. And it's upside down. Go ahead. And so this intake was cast on 4, does that say 15? 1969. So we know the engine was built in May and the intake was cast in April. In your professional opinion, Jack, how far away or how many months away would you say that is generally accepted to be numbers matching?
By the Camaro judges, they give a leeway of about 2 months.
I was going to say 2
months.
2 months, maybe 2.5 at the most.
Correct, for any parts for the car.
So we know this is original to your car, but not only that, it does have the date code that matches for the build of your car. So that just, if we're going for a professional numbers matching car, you know, get the most value out of it, good thing that we have the numbers matching intake right here. Can we talk about the car?
Please.
Now, of course, in 1969, Camaros had a special carburetor on it. Jack, how expensive is this carburetor?
I'm not really too familiar for what the cost was, but I have probably about $1,200 in restoring this carburetor.
So these are a pretty rare piece. This is a DZ carburetor, and the reason we know that, of course, is if we come down here, we can see the last numbers are 289 and then DZ, just like the block. More importantly, we also see list 4053, and then we have a build date of 943. So this carburetor was built in 1969. It was built in April, and it was also built on the 3rd day of April. So this is about a month before your car was built.
Correct.
So it is a numbers matching carburetor for your car. We know, obviously, since you bought it new, that it is off your car. These carburetors are pretty expensive, and they made them several different years. So in 1968, you would have the same carburetor on a Z28, but you would also have the same list 4053 carburetor on an L78 car, which is a 396, 375 horse, and that would have been on any Camaro, Chevelle, Nova. It would have had the same carburetor on it. Now in 1969, they were only found on the Z28s, but you could also get them on an L72 427 car. That would have had the same carburetor, and it would have also been on an L78 car. The carburetor was the same, but the part number changed, and the jets were a little bit bigger because they were a little bit bigger engines. Remember, a Z28 is a small block, but those cars were big block cars. You could also get the same carburetor in 1977 as a service replacement block, but see how this one only has 3 numbers for the date code? It says 943. In 1977, it would have had 4 numbers on there. So if you find a list 4053 DZ carb with 4 numbers down here, that's a 77 replacement carburetor. All right, so the next thing we got here is the distributor. Now, Jack, this is a 111, 4 ones, and then a 480 distributor, which would be correct for a Z28. However, there's something that you actually had mentioned to me before, and that is the build date on this distributor is 1968, M, which would be December, and then 19th. So this was built on December 19th, 1968. But your car was built on May. So you were telling me that there was some sort of discrepancy or something like that, or this is the original one that came in your car?
That is the original born distributor to my car.
We don't have the starter here, but you were mentioning that there was an issue maybe with your starter on your car from the factory, and that's why it has a different distributor and a starter?
The starter is original to the car, and so is the distributor. The discrepancies are the starter is a week after my engine stamping. And the logical excuse that I had gotten from some experts where there might have been a problem with my starter when it was going down the assembly line. They put it in a holding area until they got more starters to fill the assembly line out, pulled my car off of the holding area, and put the new starter on it, which was a week after my engine stamping.
And we have to remember that this was just an assembly at a factory. In other words, even though this isn't the right date code, we know it came on your car, correct?
Correct.
It could have just fallen off of a rack somewhere and somebody had just picked it up and put it on your car because it was the only one left on the pallet for a Z28. Something like that could have happened too. Is that possible?
That's a logical explanation, yes.
And a lot of times stuff like that did happen. You were telling me that this is an original points distributor, but you said that that made the car backfire?
There was problems with, when I was driving it, I had a lot of problems with the points and the condenser. So what I did was I took the points and the condenser out and made this a breakerless ignition with a 1-wire.
The second thing that we have here is your alternator. And what can you tell us about the alternator, Jack?
The alternator is original to the car. If I'm not mistaken, the date codes on it are March.
I'm not familiar with them. That's why I'm asking you. It's not something I have a lot of experience with. Get the tag out of here.
I'm trying to look for where the dates are on this thing. I can't find where the dates are on it.
Right
there.
there.
It is. And the date says it's a 9
C,
which is 1969, March, and March the 7th.
Okay, so that would fit in line then.
Yes.
With the correct build date of the car. And see, that's the kind of stuff, see, I normally buy cars and they're, I don't want to say junk, but they normally don't have the original distributor on them. They don't have the alternator. So this is stuff that I'm also learning from you as we go along here. And something that I've never bought on a car, or a car that I own, is the smog equipment. So Jack, what can you teach us all here about the smog equipment for this car?
The smog equipment is original born to the car. It was refurbished.
Okay.
And
now, did all cars get smog equipment in 1969 Camaro-wise, or?
From my understanding, the 4-speed cars got the smog equipment.
And all of the big block cars?
This I do not know. I cannot comment on that, but
okay.
I know that I know that all the 4-speed cars back in '69 had smog equipment.
I have read that all the big block cars did get the smog equipment in 1969, except for the Chevelle 396, 325 horse cars. And they would have had basically a bracketry system kind of just like this.
Those are the smog tubes.
And they would have went in the exhaust manifolds just kind of like this.
Correct.
And these are usually the very first things that people would have thrown away when they took delivery of the car.
Correct.
Jack, what can you teach us about this?
These tubes I had bought to replace the ones that were rusted and that I could not remove from my exhaust manifolds.
Okay.
I had the smog, I had my exhaust manifolds refurbished, and I had plugs put in them just for sake right now, you know, when I was going to assemble the car.
Now let me ask you, these manifolds, are they date coded correct to the car also? Is that how far you've gone with your restoration so far?
Yes. The right side is dated May the 12th, 1969 for the right side.
And this would be the other side.
The left side says
E13-9. So this was made the next day.
Made the very next day.
So
yes.
basically they're a matching set.
Correct, Parker.
And you said your heads were made a day apart also.
My cylinder heads are dated May the 7th and May the 8th also.
That's also everything was built in May, pretty
Correct.
much. I just think that's so cool. You know, I've never had a car where everything was built like, oh, I just think that's awesome. You do have your set of shocks here.
Those are a set of NOS shocks.
And you were telling me the way to tell the difference between the NOS shocks and regular shocks.
Or the reproductions. The spirals are deeper in the original shocks as opposed to the reproductions.
In the reproductions.
And these also have the correct part number, and they're date coded also.
I see on here it says 11869. Is that the date code, or where would?
Yeah, I think it says.
Would that be the 118th day?
Yes, it goes by the 118th day of 1969.
And that would put us somewhere in between April and May.
I have all 4 matching shocks for this car.
Awesome. I think we've kind of gone over all of the pieces here. One of the last things that I want to talk about is the Endura bumper. You don't come across Endura bumpers very, very often. And what is this material?
It's like a hard plastic.
Okay.
Is what the material is on the Endura bumper.
There are NOS Endura bumpers out there for sale, and they are what, $5,000, $7,000? They're extremely expensive. And I actually know how to tell the difference between a reproduction piece and a non-reproduction piece. And I'm trying to angle it for the camera here. First off, on an original Endura bumper on a 69 Camaro, these are just brackets that Jack had hanging it from his garage. The original ones weigh about 12 pounds. They're pretty heavy. The aftermarket ones weigh about 8 pounds, so they're not as heavy. But if you tilt the Endura bumper like this, and you look at this bracket right here, there's like a 45-degree angle. The aftermarket Endura bumpers, the way that they bolt on to the brackets, which are different than 69 Camaro original regular bumper brackets, this piece on the aftermarket piece is flat. It does not have this 45-degree angle in here, and that's how we know. Of course it is painted, and a lot of them are painted, but this would be an original piece to your car.
Correct, Parker.
The way that they're molded and here's a little bit different, but it's kind of difficult to explain that on camera, and so the easiest way is to just tell by the bracket. Is there anything else that we've kind of missed or haven't talked about? Is there any pieces to this car to kind of put it back together? Basically, it's a super rare Camaro Lego kit is kind of the way I look at it. Is there any pieces that you know of that is missing?
Not to my knowledge on this car.
Not to your knowledge. And I'll show you how extensive Jack is with this car. He has everything broken down. He's gone ahead and went and has all his date codes and everything. And you can get a copy of this as well. Not only that, but he has his parts, and you can see all of the parts.
The NOS.
As far as the NOS parts and the money that he has spent on putting this car, getting it to the quality of restoration as far as like the little components that we've talked about, where he's at, and you can also see the restored parts. And Jack this isn't your first rodeo. I mean, you bought this car new. You know every nut and bolt of this car. You are very, very knowledgeable when it comes to Camaros in your own right. I mean, have definitely taught me a lot. But just, I was trying to find the place where, yeah, so right here, things that he needs to buy. So your carpet.
Correct.
The date-coated glass. Did you have any glass for the car?
I have the glass, but I was going to replace it with all new glass.
And then 370. You don't have a third member, the gears. Not a third member. You don't have the gear set for the car, right?
I have two Pawsey units that go with this car.
Oh, you do?
I have the original 3 Series Pawsey unit, which is dated in May.
Okay. And
I had purchased a 4 Series. If I wanted to put the 410s in the car or 456s, but I have two Pawsey units. I have a 3 Series Pawsey and a 4 Series Pawsey.
You actually showed me something earlier on these gas tanks that I was not familiar with. And I have a gas tank that looks just like this at home that I'm kind of excited about to go find out on my car. So Jack told me that this number right here, 57, and if you zoom back out, we'll show you where it is on the gas tank. It was written in red. Would that have been red at every factory, or is this done at every factory, or just in the Norwood plan? Or?
I am not sure about that, Parker. I do not know.
What can you tell us about that number right there?
That number 57 was a crayon marking. That was the 57th car that was going down the assembly line that day of the assembly.
That day.
Correct.
And for those that don't know, they made about, would you say, 300 to 400 Camaros a day in 1969 at both plants?
Correct.
And so this was the 57th car. I just think that's cool. Is there anything else here in these piles, Jack, that we haven't gone over, or stuff that you want to show us? Or?
Not to my knowledge, Parker.
Okay. I think that's pretty much everything in the trunk here.
Okay.
Of course, we didn't mention that it has the cutouts here for the RS.
Okay.
And it looks like all of the metalwork on this car was done pretty, like, it never was hit or anything like that, right?
Never. It never had any significant body damage to the car.
Jack, just tell us a little bit about your history with this car. Was it a car that you beat when you were younger? Was it a car that you took care of when you were younger? This
was my only car, and I drove it every day, and yeah, I drag raced it.
You drag raced it?
Yeah, I street raced a car.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, and I think everybody that had high performance cars back then, they did race their cars. They wanted to see what their car would do against another car.
What's your favorite memory with this car?
My favorite memory was when my father and I, when we went down to Don Allen
when you bought it
to order the car, and my father said to me, after the salesman quoted me a price, he went to check with his general manager, and my father looked at me and he says, "Is this what you really want?" And I said, "Yes, Dad." And when the salesman came back, my father, he put his name on the order form for the car.
It warms my heart. That's awesome. That's awesome. Did you ever been married? Did you get married in this car? Would you take it to prom or anything like that, or anything?
I was never married, but my brother James, he asked me in 1970 and 71 if he could take the car to the prom. And I told my brother James, yes, you can take it to the prom, but do not hurt it, because I am going to kill you if you hurt this car.
And why are we deciding to get rid of it now?
Because up until about 2 years ago, I have just about 95%, 98% of the parts for this car. I don't need any more. And when I was buying the parts for the car, I was enthused. But now that I have all of the parts that I really need, I just lost interest in the car. And I just don't have any desire to finish the car now.
And you were telling me if you were to finish it, it would be worth too much for you to drive.
I would probably never drive the car even after I did get it finished.
Interesting. And when would you say it was the last time that you really drove the car? What year would that have been?
That would have been in 1985.
85, so it's been off the road for quite some time.
Correct, Parker.
If any one of you guys at home is interested in purchasing this car, how could they get in contact with you?
There's two ways. They could get a hold of me by my phone number, which is 724-547-8148, or they could email me at jackschumar@zoominternet.net.
Well, guys, you're not going to get a chance in life very often to buy a 69 Camaro RS Z28, but you're never going to ever get another chance to buy a 69 Camaro Z28 RS car from the original owner, who is just a die-hard fan and went this far to get all of the parts and pieces. And if you're interested in the car, give Jack a call. Again, my name is Parker with Backyard Barn Finds, and Jack, thank you for letting us check it out.
My pleasure, Parker.
Thank you.